But did it have to be Michigan? Welcome to Buckeyes Live right here at the Voice of College Football, coming your way typically on Wednesday, but we say this all the time. Subscribe, hit the bell for the notifications to know when we go live. We are on our alternate date this week. It is the Big Ten tournament for the men in Minneapolis, and we will get a little preview from Steve, and we'll get us started here. Steve Hellwagon right next to me, Bucknuts 247 Sports. Tony Gerdeman, it's Buckeye Huddle. It's Buckeye Weekly Podcast. You got to get there as well. Just below me, Kevin Noon, Buckeye Huddle as well. So the only thing I can say is go to Buckeye Huddle, and then you're going to have to fight over, which direction to go between these two. And it's the Big Me Podcast. Go Kevin's direction. There you go. Here we go with the I used to just be enamored with the Big Ten tournament. Love the Big Ten tournament. I believe the first one in Chicago in 1998.
That was it.
I fell off the wagon about 10 years ago, Steve. So I have no idea what's going on, except there's a rejuvenated Buckeye squad heading to already in Minneapolis.
Yeah. And we can thank Kevin Warren for exiling us here to Minnesota last week for the women. It was a major event to see the Caitlin Clark show. They were lined up through the streets to get to the festival seating in the upper deck for that game last week. And all the sessions were sold out. I don't think it's going to be quite like that this week for the men. And I don't think a lot of fans have made the trek up here to Minneapolis to come to this first time ever they've had it here. Usually it's a fixture in Chicago and Indianapolis. I will show you outside my window. Hopefully you can see it.
Be careful, Steve.
Yeah, be careful. Let's see. Put me on the full screen so I can see what I'm looking at, if you would.
Well,
okay. That venue right there, First Avenue, that was the place from the Prince movie, I believe, Purple Rain. And then off in the distance there is the Target Center. I'm 1 block away from the arena. So the setup here is about as good as it could possibly get for the media to get to and from the did I turn off my camera?
You have turned off the camera.
I don't know how I did that. Yeah, there I am. I'm back. So, the setup's good and plenty of nightlife here downtown Minneapolis. And we'll see if the Buckeyes can carry over the momentum. They had 4 straight wins going in to tonight's game against Iowa. They lost the game to Iowa out there by 2 points back in January, so they know they can play with Iowa. And should be a fun up and down game tonight here in the Twin Cities. Looking forward to it. And obviously need 2 wins. Got to win this game and then try and knock off the number 2 seed Illinois tomorrow in the quarterfinals if they win. And that might be enough to get them squeeze their way into the NCAA.
2 wins. Okay.
2 wins.
I might be watching my first basketball of the year here this week.
Big Ten Network tonight, 6:30 Eastern. Here we go.
All right, Steve, we're going to stay with you because Tony Alford, of course, running back coach, moves from Ohio State to Michigan. Okay. He's been at Ohio State since 2015. I don't know, I watched a lot of or listened to a lot of stuff from you guys and elsewhere, and picked up a lot of insight that I wasn't aware of. But so the move is not necessarily surprising in regards to him moving on, but to Michigan, certainly this has really poked the fan base.
Yeah, it's one of the most amazing developments that I can remember in my time at Ohio State covering the Buckeyes is that that you would lose a coach once spring practice has begun. Usually you figure you're locked in for the season at that point. I'm having trouble here. Sorry. About the only thing I can remember is back in like 04, 05, Bill Conley retired in the middle of spring football. And then he obviously came out of retirement, coached at Ohio Dominican for a few years. But his retirement paperwork came in at that point and he walked away, from coaching in the middle of spring practice. But that was about the only other thing I can remember similar to this. And Ohio State, we send Freedom of Information Act requests to them for all the coaching contracts. And so the last one I had on Tony Alford said that it expired on January the 31st. I don't know if he was ever given another contract. He was only making, and I say only, like $630,000 plus whatever bonuses that they earned for, winning the Big Ten or going to a big bowl game or the playoff or whatever. And so I think that he probably was not offered a raise in whatever the new contract was going to be, and maybe never signed a new contract after January 31st and was just working under the terms of the old one until they could get one in place. I would have thought that. I just wonder, again, I'm just kind of speaking off the cuff here without, and these guys may have better insight when they get going as to, through their contacts, exactly what the disconnect was. But it seems like Ryan Day and Chip Kelly feel like they could do better at the running back position, feel like they could get more out of the players at that position and more out of the coach at that position. And so I don't think they're broken up at all that Tony Alford's leaving. The fact that he's leaving to go to Michigan, well, you go where the money is. And if they're going to pay him what he thinks he's worth, then, he's got to do that. Loyalty's a two-way street. And, if he didn't feel like they were doing right by him, he looks around and sees everybody else in the room's making $1 million and he's scraping by on 600, and he's a veteran coach. He's got a lot of years in. He probably figures he deserves it. So that's my 2 cents on it. Just really weird that it's Michigan, but if somebody's not locked up in a contract, they can walk away at any moment. And so I presume that Chip Kelly has somebody in mind, maybe from his past, that maybe somebody from UCLA or another stop along the way, and they're going to get somebody in there probably as soon as they can. It'll probably be the grad assistants coaching the running backs for a week or two and until they get somebody in there. But I'm eager to hear what Tony and Kevin have unearthed on this, because this hit me as I was flying to Minnesota yesterday. And I was like, what? He's going where to do what? But, we had a note maybe in our boarding house rumors column a week ago that they nosed around on Eddie George. And I was like, what? So I don't know that Eddie George is going to be the guy, but maybe that just is an indication that they thought they could do better. So that's where they're at.
Well, and we had heard that Day was thinking about the decision to bring Tony Alford back after the season was not a foregone conclusion. And we got a bunch of release on some contracts in February where some of the guys that were extended, and Tony Alford wasn't one of those. So I don't know if he was just operating right now under a 1-year deal. And I think last year, because I was looking yesterday, last year he made about $770-some thousand. And obviously he's going to get more from Michigan, but also more years. So I think it's a 3-year thing versus maybe a 1-year deal at Ohio State. And, he was going into his 10th year at Ohio State, same running back position. So at some point, if you want to move up, you have to go do it somewhere else, perhaps. And, as Steve said, loyalty is a two-way street, but I think he's been pretty loyal. They've been loyal to him. I mean, he's carved out a pretty good career at Ohio State, but it's just been the same thing. And so this might be an opportunity not just to reset the clock, which it will do, but also give him maybe just freshen him up a little bit as well, because like I said, going into your 10th year at the same place, that's rare for an assistant coach, and Ohio State had a couple of those with Larry Johnson as well. But I don't know that I expected him to be back next year based on what we were hearing about this past season.
Yeah, I kind of heard the same things too. I mean, Ohio State made its coaching staff changes, and you look at the contracts and you look at who who was released, who was put in that release with 2 and 3 year extensions, and Tony Alford wasn't. According to the USA Today assistant coaching database, I think Tony was making just shy of 800. So you wonder if Ward Manuel, in order to try and gain a little bit of the PR battle, overpaid potentially. And that's, I don't say that as a slight to Tony. I just say to Tony Alford, that is. I'm always here to slight Tony Gerdeman. But you wonder if he overpaid to try and recapture the narrative a little bit. I mean, obviously, Ohio State is sitting with quite possibly the best running back room in the nation this year with Trevion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins and Dallin Hayden. And you go and you get the coach, and Ohio State was sitting in really good position with a lot of top national backs for the class of 2025. And I'm sure, I'm not even looking at the chat right now, but I'm willing to bet if Mika Hanna is in the chat, she's asking, what does this mean for recruiting? Yeah, it came as a little bit of a shock, but not a complete shock once it happened that he was leaving. But Michigan certainly was a little bit of a surprise, and Michigan fans are high-fiving each other, and Ohio State fans are like, "Oh, he wasn't all that good anyway." And we'll see where things take us.
Before we move on to some candidates, and Kevin will stay with you, I want to hit you guys with a few points that you probably hit on elsewhere. However, these are original thoughts, nothing genius out of my head. But number one, he goes directly to the arch rival. He knows the offense. He knows a lot about recruiting, all those things that are in-house. Do you think in any way that that's of course, every coach has that opportunity once they move on to another program, especially in conference. But do you think there's possible impact there?
Does this mean that Ohio State once and for all will have to change its signals? I know we're saying that we're going to be getting helmet communications, but that doesn't mean that you throw away your signal sheets. It doesn't mean that there are not last second signals that are shot in one way or the other. So maybe I'm really stretching to find a silver lining here or whatever, but does this finally force you to change your signals? This would be a good time with Chip Kelly coming in to run the offense and do a complete rebuild. I mean, you have, what likely is going to be a new quarterback if Will Howard takes the reins there at the quarterback position, and how you're going to operate things. Of course, there's going to be the conspiracy theory that Tony Alford made sure to hang on through the start of spring practice so he could be in all of that planning and then walk it over to his new boss. I guess. I mean, certainly Tony Alford now is going to have to be loyal to the place it is that is signing his current paycheck. So there's going to be something to that. But guess what? Coaching changes happen all the time in the industry, in sports, whatever. You have to have a plan. And if you don't have a plan, well, the next coaching change we're going to be talking about is your own, because obviously there's a breakdown at that point.
I will say that Tony Alford did say on Twitter that that is a false rumor, that he is taking all of the Ohio stuff that he has learned and the Chip Kelly stuff that he has learned and taking that over to Michigan. So just rest assured, everything that he got from Ohio State will stay at the border. It will not move into the state of Michigan. But, we've seen this before. Al Washington, Greg Madison have done it. There have been coaches that have gone back and forth, but it just feels like right now, with the state of affairs between Ohio State and Michigan, to go to Michigan at this point, I don't know. Does it feel a little personal, like to do this with Michigan? Because Tony Alford could go coach a lot of different places, but to do it at Michigan is, on one hand, it seems purposeful. On another hand, it seems like, well, this is just a really good opportunity to cash in for security, for, like I said, restarting the clock. But you can convince me, you can convince a lot of people that there is a little bit of just, a desire to want to maybe stick it to Ryan Day or something in this.
Yeah, I could see both categories both boxes being filled. Because one thing, my automatic thought when something like this happens is that the fan base is obviously emotionally attached. These guys, unless it's a legacy situation, their alma mater, it's their career. They're taking a job. They're not tied to these rivalries. Sure, he's been entrenched in this rivalry for 9 years, but this is, so there's that aspect of it as well that may or may not come into play for certain guys. There's also a thought that Travion Henderson and he are close, and this could possibly move Travion Henderson in a certain direction to move on himself.
Where the hell is that thought coming from?
I don't know. I saw it a bunch of different places. I don't know if there's any substance to it.
Come on, man.
Okay. I'm just throwing it out there because I saw it more than once or twice.
Yeah, I know from our staff, everything that we've kind of gleaned, none of the guys are planning to transfer. So regardless of this move, and they're confident in what Ohio State has and who they will get to coach them. And I just read a note that if need be, Chip Kelly will coach both the quarterbacks and the running backs for the time being, if need be, to get them through this brief moment. Sounds like that Coach Day will be interviewing some people starting next week and working really hard to try and find somebody to fill that job. And when it happens, it'll happen.
I mean, there's been a lot of wild speculation, and really, I want to use a different S word in talking about some of the things that are out there. And no offense to Mark, of course. I've read the same speculation myself on the socials, and I then look at who's saying it, and then I'm like, I wouldn't pee on them if they were on fire. So, it's this is going to lead to a major shift in the room. First of all, the transfer portal does not open because of an assistant coach leaving. The portal will open again at the end of spring for whatever that short portal period is. But if I have 1 year left, I'm not going somewhere to start over or anything like that. I mean, it just, once again, is just people out there trying to get reactions, people out there engagement farming. I've been known to after a couple of drinks of me to say some things on Twitter just to see if I can get some engagement going on. But all of my BS is based in reality. This other BS is not.
Posted a poll on Twitter, one as well here on the YouTube page just before we came on. So I'm not going to get into those because the numbers are still accumulating. So we'll update those at some point and let everyone know where the Twitter poll stands in regards to your caring about this move from the highest intensity of vitriol to you just don't care. And probably one I should have included that somebody mentioned in the chat is I should have put some kind of just adds to the drama. I added juice on one of those selections, but drama is a good word as well. So next up, as Steve has brought up, more importantly, moving on, and who could possibly be filling this role? Where are the candidates? Who wants to step on this one?
Well, if I'm up, I can say that some of the names that I've seen bandied about, obviously Eddie George, I touched on him a little bit ago. I believe he's still the head coach at Tennessee State, and whether he'd want to walk away from that to come back to Ohio State and Columbus, I don't know. He's probably carved out a pretty nice life for himself wherever Tennessee State is. And that may be, his home turf right now. But so, that's an obvious one. To have a guy that won the Heisman Trophy on your staff would be pretty cool. Scotty Graham is an interesting name. Scotty Graham and I both lived in Baker Hall in the late 1980s on the same floor. And he was a running back. He played in the same backfield with Carlos Snow. So sometimes he'd play fullback and sometimes he was the feature back. So I look at it that he's kind of gone through an interesting career path. He was an administrator at Arizona State for a while, and then was convinced to come out of that and go coach at Arizona for a little while as the running backs coach there, and is now, I believe, at Washington. So, maybe he would want to come back to his alma mater, kind of like Tim Walton, been gone for 30 years and come back, so many years later. I think they would have played together at least one or 2 years, perhaps, in their time at Ohio State. So that's an interesting name as well. Pepe Pearson works for Eddie George at Tennessee State as the running backs coach. Maybe he's a guy. And then Dave Biddle from our staff said there is one more name who is actually not a former Ohio State running back that he could not reveal, prime candidate for this job at this point, that is also going to get an interview next week. So I guess we'll stay tuned on that. But yeah, those were some of the early names that really popped up. And of course, Eddie would give you that cachet, but kids, in 2024, do they, know Eddie George won the Heisman Trophy 30 years ago? That's a good question.
Well, and yeah, there's going to be no shortage of applications for Ryan Day to go through. I believe yesterday Tim May reached out to Eddie George, and Eddie said no, that he would not be not interested. We'll see. I reached out to somebody who has worked with Scotty Graham in the past, to just get their assessment, and said he wouldn't. Could see him taking it if it was offered, but also that he's a very high energy guy and an incredible recruiter. So that's kind of right up the Ohio State alley. But a lot of times it's, what kind of connections do you have to Ryan Day, to Chip Kelly? And we've seen the hires that Ryan Day has made. It's generally been guys that he knows or his coordinator knows. And I don't know that Scotty Graham really has any connection because, like Steve said, he's been at Arizona State for a while. So while we always just immediately go to former Buckeyes who are in coaching, that's I think you got to look at the tree more than than maybe the degree there, Kevin.
Yeah, everybody wants to sit there and say that, the staff has to be full of alumni, and that's not always necessarily going to be the case. There's going to be something said about familiarity with Ryan, familiarity with Chip. When Ohio State went and brought in a new offensive coordinator, part of the marching orders were hiring and firing, powers to kind of shape the staff that they want. If that is true, then obviously Chip Kelly is going to have a major impact on what this is going to be. So of course people have gone through and tried to look at the Chip Kelly coaching tree. Deuce Staley is somebody who was there in Philadelphia. Tom Rathman was in San Francisco. He has been retired for a couple of years. We always like to go into these coaching searches and say, we got a great idea of who the list is. And many times we're proven right. And a lot of times somebody completely out of left field. So if you sit there and say that I have to take Eddie, Pepe, and Scotty Graham or the field, I'm probably still taking the field at this point, just based on the fact of Chip Kelly really is kind of the wild card in there that creates some uncertainty of the direction that they're going to want to go.
I will say Ryan Day probably likes the results he's been getting from his former Buckeye players as assistants when you consider Brian Hartline, Tim Walton, and James Laurinaitis. But I don't know that's the first thing on the list. But I think it's something to definitely consider because people do like Scotty Graham, and Ryan Day has liked the results from the former Buckeyes who are out on the field recruiting. And again, he's not just a former Buckeye. He played in the NFL. He's done some things. So I think Scotty Graham is definitely somebody to consider. I don't think the list is just former Buckeyes though. And the agents will be reaching out and OSU will be reaching out to agents and saying, hey, any interest? And the agent's like, well, let me go check. Yeah, we've got some interest. And then that kind of gets the ball really rolling.
Falling in line with what David Greenshield is asking here. We appreciate it, David. How important would it be to get a former Ohio State player? Kevin and Tony just addressed. See Brian Hartline, Tim Walton, James Laurinaitis. The Brian Hartline career trajectory just amazes me. Taking it all the way back to his final season at Ohio State and understanding that he opted to go to the NFL early with like whatever he had, 18 receptions the year before or something. I just was shaking my head when he made that move. And then he turns out to be so much better in the NFL than I ever anticipated. Not that I didn't think he was good, but I would have never said this guy's going to have 1,000-yard receiving seasons in the NFL. And now he's the assistant coach out there that's the highest regarded of anyone across the country. Shoot, I'm on shows all week, 8, 9 different teams. And when assistant coaches are brought up, he's at the top of the list.
Yeah,
Well,
I go ahead, Tony.
I was just gonna say that I don't even remember. You'd probably leave for the NFL early as well, Mark. Is if you really did not want Terrell Pryor to be your quarterback, you probably would have left early as well. Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah,
I don't know
definitely.
if I can. I don't know if I can top that one. But it's all well and good, and it just comes down to the individual, honestly, because just because you went to a school and you get it, you understand what this rivalry is, you understand what it means. That's fine. But that doesn't mean that you're going to go out there and be a great recruiter. That doesn't mean that you're going to be able to go out there and develop players. It doesn't mean that you're going to see eye to eye with your fellow coaches in the coaching room. So you have to find somebody that fits. And something I'm going to say too about the running back coaching job is that job is 95% recruiting and 5% development, because it's just how it is. You have 1 or 2 positions on your staff of where you stash your best recruiters, and running back coach is primarily one of those spots. So I think so much of what it is that this coach needs to do is going to be selling ketchup popsicles to a woman in white gloves. I mean, you're going to have to be able to go into schools and land these kids. Yes, there is a level of development and everything else, but when you have Ryan Day and Chip Kelly and everything else, Justin Fry, even to a certain extent, I'm not looking as much about what their running back chops are. Now, you can't bring in somebody who doesn't know what the hell they're doing. I mean, it's valuable limited real estate when you only have 10 counting coaches, and you don't want to lock up with somebody who has no idea. But so much of this is about going and being a top recruiter.
In that vein, the recruiting aspect of it, I tweeted this out, put it on our board. Tony Alford has recruited 1 NFL draft pick at running back out of high school, and that's J.K. Dobbins. Now that might grow by 1 this year with Mayan Williams, might grow by another next year with Travion Henderson. But there's like a 6-year window of 2016, which would have been his first class, to 2020, which would be draft eligible last year. That's 5 classes with 1 NFL draft pick. And at Ohio State, like that used to be the quarterback. That's not even quarterback. I think they would have more draft picks than that at quarterback over the years. And Ohio State has never been a great quarterback producer, but they put some 5th rounders, some 6th rounders in the NFL. To only have 1 draft pick in that span of time, to go into a season with, no offense, but Master Teague as your starting running back. I mean, these are not great situations that the running backs at Ohio State have found themselves in. The position has found itself in. So I think there's obviously an opportunity for improvement here. There would have been improvement. There's been improvement anyway with Tony Alford, but overall, you look at the span of time, like, how do you explain 1 NFL draft pick in a 6-year stretch or 5-year stretch of recruiting classes when you're bringing in 1.5 guys a year. So in those 5 years, you probably brought in 8 guys, and so 12.5% of your running back recruits in the span of time gets drafted in the NFL. I don't think that's good enough.
I agree. I think Henderson is obviously a big coup for him that he got Henderson, but there just hasn't been. I mean, they're in on a lot of great running backs and don't seem to land very many of them. So, I mean, they get guys that are ranked around 100 nationally as opposed to, top 20 at running back. But, whatever. I just think that Ryan Day wants more out of that position, and only he knows what Tony Alford does behind the scenes, whatever his contributions are. Ryan Day's the only one who really knows that. And again, I go back, years and years ago. We had a friend of ours who covered recruiting, and there would be a guy who would verbal somewhere else, would maybe have an OSU offer, but would verbal somewhere else. And people would go on the message boards and say, oh, so-and-so has dropped the ball again on this or dropped the ball again on that. And my friend reminded me that the coach at the time was Jim Tressel. They said, they don't drop the ball on anybody. It's the ball is on the ground because they wanted it on the ground, basically, in those instances. That was kind of a lesson for me, that don't get caught up in the fact that they lost a recruit because, that they're in on somebody else, so they've got a plan. So I'm going to operate under the suspicion that Day and Kelly have a plan, and they're not broken up at all about this. If they really, I mean, and they, from what our people said, that they did make a counter offer to Tony Alford, but maybe not for the same number of years that Michigan offered. And so he went in that direction. And I thought it was comical. He posted the "Thank you, Buckeye Nation" or something, and to a man and a woman, Buckeye Nation completely no-sold that. It was no, thank you, no sir, get the F out. I mean, it was like,
I believe the name that I saw thrown around a lot yesterday was Benedict Alford, if you will. Benedict Alford. But
yeah.
let me play devil's advocate a little bit on the running back development. I think James Peoples, incoming freshman this year, is going to prove to be a pretty solid back, but we are looking at a very different Ohio State offense over the 9 years of Tony Alford than the previous 9 million years of Ohio State history when it comes to how the offense is generated and everything else. And I don't know if you're necessarily going to have a lot of J.K. Dobbins type of performances when you look at some of the quarterbacks that they've had, certainly some of the receivers that they've had. Now, a very valid point can be made that Ohio State has gone a little too pass happy, maybe a lot too pass happy, hasn't been able to pick up the tough yardage, has not necessarily been able to get what it wants to done in the run game. Is that a result of scheme? Is that a result of personnel? That's up for debate at that point. But yeah, there certainly have been some years where the running back recruiting hasn't necessarily been able to bear the fruit that everybody expected. And I think one of the most recent phenomena is Ohio State in the last 2 cycles has lost running backs via NIL deals to Miami, Florida at the 11th hour. And there was a joke going on about Byron Lewis and is Ohio State going to continue recruiting him, just knowing what's going on there. It'll be an interesting case study to see whatever Tony's replacement does on that, because there's no doubt in my mind Byron Lewis is very interested in Ohio State. But when Miami starts swinging big bags of life wallet cash around, it can be difficult to say no as well.
But Kevin, you're talking about the pass happy offense. That is 2018, and as J.K. Dobbins is the running back, he gets drafted. The pass happy offense with C.J. Stroud, that's Travion Henderson. He's going to get drafted. So it is different offenses, but the names and the production and the getting drafted is just the odd part of this. I'll just give you the 8 names from 2016 to 2020, the running backs that were signed. DeMario McCall, Antonio Williams. McCall ends up as a corner. Antonio Williams ends up at UNC. He does play in the NFL. I don't know that he got drafted. J.K. Dobbins in 2017. 2018, you signed Brian Snead and Master Teague. Snead gets kicked out of school, I believe, and Teague ends up just being done.
Just being a great dude.
Yes. And then 2019, Steel Chambers, Marcus Crowley. Chambers moves to linebacker. Crowley has bad knees and couldn't, both of those guys averaged like 9 yards a carry as freshmen, but didn't work out. And then in 2020, Mayan Williams. And he will, I don't know, he's going to be a third-day pick, I'm guessing, because I don't expect his 40 to be all that great. But obviously, he's a talented back. Could never unseat Travion Henderson. But that's not a great list of, like I said, there's injuries and things like that. And there have been times where the room has been low. I do think things were on the upswing, and we've talked for over the past since like June about Ohio State being in on like 8 different high 4-star 2025 running backs, and Tony Alford having to pick, of 2 or 3 guys, whatever he wants. And so things obviously we're not trending down, but clearly Ryan Day wanted more, and this is very much a put up or shut up year, I think, for Tony Alford. And I think he made the decision that a lot of people would make if you take the emotional aspect out of it, which I know that's hard to do with Ohio State, Michigan. But if you're looking at, well, I've got 1 year and I don't know what's happening after that versus I've got 3 years, more money. I don't care what happens after that right now. I mean, that's a pretty easy decision.
Well, let's also remember before Ryan Day really took the reins, the running back was the quarterback under Urban Meyer. So you have that, and Marcus Crowley was a Mr. Football in Florida. He was a big deal. Brian Snead was a big deal when that happened. I mean, yes, there had been some odd decisions of directions that they went at various times. I'll be the first one to admit it. And I think I said it at the time. It's like, it's probably not the back I would have pursued or whatever, but it is what it is. But in the moment, some of those backs were, high 4 stars, low 5-star type of backs. And it just, again, goes to show the uncertain nature of recruiting. And even if you have the best system in place, if somebody's ACL doesn't want to hang on, or somebody, their body is, their mind is willing and their body is unwilling, I'm going to tell you which one's going to win.
Hi, Sue. Good to see you here. As always, Sue going in the same general direction as I was when I went on my Brian Hartline career path. Does anyone else worry that Hartline might be feeling disgruntled by bringing in Chip Kelly instead of teaching him how to call plays? I don't want him to leave too. And before somebody takes off on this one, it's my thought at this point, and it has been for a while, that maybe Brian Hartline is never going to be a play caller at this high elite level program. And for him to dip down into the low level ranks, I don't think he's about that he may just skip the whole level to be a head coach.
I'll just quickly say that this isn't a finishing school. You're here to win games today. And you don't have time. There were a lot of people ready to run Ryan Day out of town. You don't have time to sit there and say, well, we're going to go to play calling 050 and we're going to teach you how to do this. I mean, you got to be able to do these things in the weeds and when the bullets are flying and everything else. And trust me, Brian Hartline is being well compensated in his role. He's enjoying everything that he's doing. I'm going to, while I'm not around Brian Hartline every minute of the day, of the week, of the year, I'm pretty confident in saying he's enjoying his life. He is really seizing the opportunity and having a good time as things are going on. So I don't think that having this, finishing school, as I put it earlier, is necessarily the right call.
Well, I think we talked last year about the build up to seeing and perhaps Brian Hartline be that play caller, and Ryan Day was going to go through the spring about it and see how things went. He never fully handed it over and would just talk about we'll see, and it would be nice if that could happen, that sort of thing. But he's never done it, and as Kevin said, this is not the place to necessarily learn. I do think Brian Hartline has such a high level of expectations, and I do agree, Mark, that he has said he wants to be a head coach, and whether that's college or the NFL, if he's going to be a head coach somewhere, Urban Meyer was the receivers coach at Notre Dame and got the head coaching position at Bowling Green. I think Brian Hartline could do better than that, but you're talking about, okay, Louisville, something like that. And it's like, you're going to take a step down below what your standard is. Are you going to be happy with that? Or would it just be better it's going to be hard to become a position coach, go from position coach to NFL head coach. You might have to go from position coach to NFL position coach, NFL OC, and then something. And if Ohio State's not willing to give him this, I don't think the NFL is going to be willing to give him an OC spot either. But I do think this is an opportunity for him we don't even necessarily know if he wants to call plays. He has talked in the past, like it's not that important to him. But being a head coach has become more and more of a thing that he has thought about. I just wonder if he will be okay taking that step down and dealing with, you're not going to be bringing in 5 stars. You might hit a couple of home runs like Dion in recruiting, but you're not going to fill out your room or all of your positions the way you'd like somewhere in a lower position as a head coach.
We appreciate everyone being here at the Voice of College Football. The players, as Steve has just posted in the chat, are on spring break. And we continue here. Of course, catch Steve at Bucknuts 247 Sports. He's going to be a little bit more focused on the hard court here for the next few days, the next few weeks.
We don't know. Next week, I could be
Boise.
Possibly going to the first 4 in Dayton. Could be then maybe on to NCAA or possibly NIT. Maybe if they don't win enough games here. And then the women will host first round action either Friday or Saturday of next week. And then if they win as a 2 seed, you would figure they would make the second round, would be either Sunday or Monday, probably there at Value City Arena. So that's going on. And state basketball tournament is also going on. They have a guy who signed with Ohio State, Colin White, from Ottawa Glandorf up in Northwest Ohio. He had 37 points in a regional semifinal game last night. So he and his team are moving on one step away from getting back to the state Final Four. Kind of a cool note that just happened yesterday. And he's sticking, at least for now, with his commitment to Ohio State, despite the coaching change. So we'll see how that all pans out.
Tony, what's going on with you this week?
Oh, and there's Pro Day next week too, isn't there? Is that right? Or is it the following week?
Pro Day on the 20th.
That's next Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday we'll be there.
I'm hoping you missed that. So
no, we'll be there.
Marvin's not going to do anything, and they don't really have any high draft picks otherwise. So it's like, whatever. So
Steve, come on. It's the
I'm
best
not
day of the year.
Buckeye, except when it comes to going to stuff I don't want to go to. So
what's going on with me? We put out a couple of Buckeye Weekly episodes this week. On Tuesday, we did a look at the 2 deep on offense. Tomorrow, we'll drop one looking at the 2 deep on defense, just what we've seen, the way things are shaping up right now. I think this week I'm going to try to crank out a what I know, what I think, what I wonder on everything that's going on, and be posting some notebooks at BuckeyeHuddle.com. So look for all of that.
Kevin, what's the good word this week?
Yeah, earlier in the week, I looked at the upcoming 2024 season, the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten, not at Ohio State, came up with 5 names there. So that is on the Big Me Kickoff that I ran on Monday. Obviously, this whole running back coach thing derailed a lot of plans along the way. So been focused on that. I will go live on Friday at some point for viewer questions and things of that nature. And unlike these fake ass Buckeyes, I am looking forward to Pro Day because I like standing in the corner and not being able to see anything, which is standard operating procedure for this event. But I can't wait. So Tony, be sure to get my name on the credential list.
I sent that in this morning, actually. My favorite thing, and I always say this every year about Pro Day, is standing over there. Everybody has well, not everybody. Some people have their stopwatches. Some people have their cell phones, trying to time 40s from a terrible angle through 40 different people for no reason whatsoever, other than say I had him at 4.52, I had him at 4.38, and still nothing ever tops back when Eric Lichter, the Jim Tressel Sports strength guy, would run the Pro Day, and he would tell the guys what they ran with his hands afterwards so we could all see it. And it's like, oh, Ryan Shazier just won a 4.42. Those were the good old days, though Shazier obviously was an Urban Meyer Pro Day guy, but you get the idea. It was always nice that's the one thing that people want to know, even though now you ask players, have you even run a 40 at Ohio State? No, they do. It's all miles per hour now with the GPS stuff on their chest. So the 40 has gone the way of the dodo, but it's still nice to know.
Mike 3883 says, this won't be popular here, but the Wolverines winning the way they did is the best thing for the rivalry. Ohio State fans have been called annoying. The Wolverines made themselves the villain. I will segue that into, I'm tired of one-game season, so I'll say Sage, Ohio, the one-game season is over, depending on your perspective, of course. But thoughts about this somehow being, I think losing is never a good thing, but I get it. I get the point. So I don't think you're a lunatic, Mike, by any stretch. I get your point. I understand it. I just don't agree with it.
Winning the way they did as in terms of the nefarious nature or
physicality? Oh, no. You're going, yes.
I mean,
I don't know if anybody went to, has a T-shirt that's necessarily just only about the rivalry. I only root for the rivalry. No, you root for Ohio State or you root for Michigan. So this belief of what's great for the rivalry, who blanket cares? I mean, that's not pointed toward Mike 3883 or anything like that, but you're a fan of one side or the other side. And anybody who comes in and says, well, I'm just a neutral, I'm just here for the rivalry. Sorry. Your vote doesn't count. It doesn't really, that's not what rivalry is about. It's about one side or the other. So saying that I'm in favor of the 100 Years' War. No, you would be pulling for one side or the other side. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't like it. It's not a world I want to live in.
Steve, is this Steve, is this like how I only watch WWE pay-per-views? I don't watch like the weekly stuff. Like I only tune in for the big stuff. Is that Buckeye fans only tune in for the Michigan game, or Michigan fans only tune in for that? It's just like I only want the big thing. Does that make them fake ass fans? Am I a fake ass wrestling fan?
Steve's pondering.
He's not paying attention. He has no blanket idea what's going on.
He's thinking hoops.
Well, there's a lot of bad buffering going on. I can't hear.
Hotel internet.
Last minute, I heard nothing.
Yeah,
maybe it's my fault. Yeah, I don't know.
Can you see the comment on the screen? So Mike 3883, I know where he's coming from in regards to the health of the rivalry, but I'm like Kevin. Give me 2008, give me 2009, and 3 and 4 score wins that are just like, they suck. Who cares? They're just in our way. Keep going. That's fine with me. Oh, sure. Are the games more exciting? Is there more buildup when they're both 11-0? Of course, all those things. But again, give me 2008, give me 2009. Hey, 2010, I'll take it. But I did remember arriving at ESPN, and one of my first trainers was a Michigan fan, and it was right after the Jim Tressel win in 2001, and his thought was, it's good for you guys to win finally. It's good for the rivalry to win one. That doesn't really hurt us. We're did he forecast the next 17 or 18 years at that point? I don't believe. But I don't believe in that, but I kind of get it. And again, I think the rivalry, to Sage's point here, or I guess the flip of his point here would be because he's tired of one-game seasons. I just think unless you just are the ultimate Michigan hater and you're so focused on that you'd rather go 1-11 and beat Michigan than go 11-1 and go into the playoff with a Michigan loss, you're to that extreme. This game will never be the same.
Well, I will also say the one game season thing is that's a you thing. You can either enjoy the entire season or you can enjoy one game of it. That's up to you. The broadcast is still going to be there. The coverage is still going to be there. You get as much enjoyment out of that season as you want. So that's all up to you. There's only a one game season if you make it that way, in my opinion.
And if you feel that it's a one-game season with the Big Ten going to 18 and the conference schedule getting that much better, then to reiterate Tony's point, that's a you thing at that point. And I think we're going to see some opinions change on that once you're drawing Oregon or Washington or USC. And I'm not really ready to put UCLA in there right now because they've not been worth a damn in a long time.
Well, you guys live it every minute of every day as opposed to me. But I got to say, exactly, the anticipation for these Ohio State seasons is just basically circle this game and that game, and maybe we get a good non-conference game like we have at times, but basically we got to sit through Minnesota and Michigan State and Maryland, and it's just this kind of like we're biding time to get to like 3 dates on the calendar, and I understand it, but I would like just everybody just to, it's a very short season, just embrace every week, every game for what it is. And to Kevin's point, those days are basically over. There is going to be serious competition in this league going forward, I would think.
No doubt.
Even though the ADs at each school will try to make their schedule as easy as possible through non-conference scheduling, which is completely cowardly and against everything that they need to do, because if you do well enough in your conference, you'll be okay withstanding a loss in non-conference. But that's just me, pie in the sky.
Before we say goodbye, your thoughts about the 58% split that goes to the SEC and the Big Ten versus the 32 that goes to the ACC and the Big 12. The purist in me and the guy that would like to see results rewarded wants to say, hey, let's not divvy up the pie unequally until it's proven on the field, even though we all know who the 2 best conferences are and will be, and it would take a monumental change in the sport for it to be otherwise. That's not happening. But it's obviously not tied to just game results. It's tied to what those brands are going to bring in regards to eyeballs. That's the most important thing. And that's already known and been documented for years. So I get why it can be predetermined what the split should be. And of course, those 2 conferences have the power to say, take it or leave it. We either want a larger slice of the pie before we move on and do our own thing, or we need a larger slice of the pie, or we will go on and do our own thing.
Well, they were operating from a position of strength, and they took full advantage of it. And the new playoff format gives me a headache just thinking about it. Who's gonna have a deserving team that doesn't get in, and all these other things? We're just setting ourselves up for all that. But then again, how deserving are you if you are ranked 12th or 13th in the country and get left out of the playoff? Whatever. So I kind of see all sides to it. The rich just keep getting richer, and I guess, this just follows along the path of everything else we've seen, that, what we grew up on is not how it's going to be going forward. So is what it is, I guess.
The question I'm planning on asking in Big Ten Media Days when we get a chance to talk to Tony Petiti is, what makes this good for college sports, for the college athletes? This thing where you're trying to squeeze people out and exert your power. Why is this good for the whole of college sports? And they'll say, well, I'm worried about the Big Ten. And it's like, but just what makes this good for college sports to be like this? And if you can give me an answer, that's great. But it's wielding the power that they are. That's greed, and that's fine. Just go ahead and say, well, we wanted more. That's what we wanted. We just wanted more. Now they will command more because more eyeballs. Like there's an aspect of it that they deserve more. But that's a different answer than, is this good for everybody? Or is this good for all of the collegiate model? And I don't know that it is, but also I do agree that the Big Ten and the SEC deserve more because they'll have the better programs. I think it's insulting and just really, really outrageous to want the two buys. I think that's incredibly that's a bridge too far. They should get more money. They will end up getting more money, but let somebody else earn the freaking buys, okay?
As C. Montgomery Burns said, I trade it all for a little bit more. And that I'm going to operate from a position of power. I don't give a crap about the ACC or the Big 12. They should get nothing. Nothing. And I say that half serious. I don't really care what they want. They're not part of the equation, in my opinion. They're not going to produce national champions, in my opinion, and to hell with them. And really, I wish they would have pushed back. Those two leagues would have pushed back so we could just get to the spot that we know we're going to end up in. The Big Ten and the SEC breaking away, blowing up those leagues, and then they can sell vacuum cleaners and Girl Scout cookies and whatever the hell they want to. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. F them.
In your opinion.
Alrighty then.
I don't want AFC, NFC. No, I care. But to Tony's point, I would like to see, we all know who holds the power both on the field and in the seats and in the media in terms of drawing eyeballs. But I would like to see it at least play out that way for a couple of years before they go demanding all this. And then if we get to a revenue structure of paying the players, what is going to prohibit the Ohio States of the world from then going to, if let's say there's a salary cap and there's equal distribution of finances that go to paying the players to Indiana versus Ohio State, then what's to keep Ohio State, Michigan, Georgia, Alabama, and others from going to their conferences to say the same thing that you did to the playoff committee, the management committee, we will do to you, to say you need to give us more money and give us our fair share versus the equal distribution.
You know what I'm hearing? I'm hearing communism there, comrade, and I don't feel comfortable with this.
Me?
It is a free market system.
Comrade Rogers.
Exactly. I'm going to send you to the gulag.
Well, if you rewind this a couple of minutes ago, I did hear Mark Rogers say Biden time.
Hey now.
Did I stutter when I said it, or did I stumble or anything?
You said Biden time, but I can cut that and print that for you if you want.
Good stuff, I guess. All right.
Just as long as we can all
I
agree
did have to
find a way to
didn't
screw
I?
over Notre Dame and Michael Campbell. That's all I care about.
All right. Steve, I guess we're just going to say goodbye, the two of us, because, man, I had these other two. I don't know that.
Hey, Kev, my man Gene Honda's on TV for the Big Ten Conference.
Well, I also saw that they made a change, and it's no longer Sunkist. It's Orange Crush, the superior orange soda.
Oh, it is noon. Who's tipping off, Steve?
We got Michigan State, the 8 seed, which has been spewing oil down the stretch, but is still in the 20s in net, against Minnesota, who's the 9 seed, and the home team. We'll see if they get any kind of big roar from the crowd here with it being in their hometown. And kind of a tepid. That's a great year. This is the best year Minnesota's had in years, though. So, yeah. First winning season they're going to have in like 5 or 6 years, I think. So, oh, well. I'm going over to get my government issue lunch over there at the Target Center. And if I don't like it, then I'll just go up in the arena and get a slab of pizza. So there you go. And then I'm going to come back. I'm going to take a pregame nap. I'm going to get ready and go watch Big Ten tournament, Ohio State tonight, 6:30 versus Iowa.
Discarding Sparty and the Golden Gophers. You're not going to take this one in?
I'm going to go over and have lunch, and maybe I'll sit out there courtside for a little bit. If it draws me in, it draws me in. If not, come back over here. I think the second game is Wisconsin is the 5 seed against whoever the 12 was. Is it Penn State, maybe? I don't know. Something like that.
No, Penn State, weren't they the second game? It was the winner of who beat Rutgers?
Maryland. Wisconsin's playing Maryland. Yeah, Maryland. So there's so many teams in this league, I can't keep them straight. And next year, with 18 teams, they settled on a format to do 15 teams in the tournament. So if you finish in the bottom 3, you no longer get to go to the conference tournament. And there'll be 3 games on Wednesday to get to Thursday instead of 2 games. So what would that be? 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10. So, yeah, 10 and under. You have to be in the top 9 to get a bye next year.
That flies in the face of what March Madness should be.
Just doesn't know what the hell it's doing with tournament locations.
Yeah, hopefully they haven't announced next year. Hopefully it'll be back on home turf in Indianapolis, where it should be permanently. The Pac-12 tournament was never well attended in Los Angeles, so hopefully they don't put it out there. If they put it in Las Vegas, though, I think a lot of people would go to that. So even though there will not be a Big Ten team in Nevada, but Big Ten can take over Las Vegas for a weekend. So
everybody's supposed to have a shot in March.
I know it. And then you have these bottom 3 that, sorry about your damn luck.
You're 0-28. You still have a shot. That's what it's all about.
That's what it should be all about.
All right, Steve, we're going to say goodbye. Appreciate you being here with all you got going on. And I'm going to kick you out of here before we get a look at the laundry on your bed.
Okay. Take care.
See you, Steve. All right. One more time, Tony. Buckeye Weekly and Buckeye Huddle.
Yep. Buckeye Weekly dropped. We had actually a couple of bonus episodes. Yesterday we went live talking about the Tony Alford situation. So you can find that there as well. All of your podcast platforms, also youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. And had some notebooks this week from interviews from last week, and we'll continue to do that at BuckeyeHuddle.com.
And Kevin.
Yeah, as I said, I'll be going live tomorrow at some point. Probably talk a little bit about what happens tonight for Ohio State men's basketball against Iowa. Obviously, we will continue the Ohio State running back coach search saga, if you will, and we'll just see what we get there. And maybe next week I will pick out another position group to look at within the Big Ten for best players going into 24. But I don't want to get too deep into that one until we get through spring, because sometimes names emerge or just somebody that I'm not aware of, and I don't want to have to be going back and correcting the record down the line.
As always, guys, appreciate you making this happen. See you next week.